welcome back to Alphos and Sweet, a Life and Lorcana podcast. However, today we're joined by one more. Sky, welcome, buddy. You're, another Sapphire Steel legend. We are 3 players of a long forgotten deck, except by probably just the 3 people in this room. We've just had the NA champs, and spoiler alert, Sapphire Steel didn't do too hot. So today we're going to be talking about that, talking about NA champs experience, and talking about what you can look for in the set champs meta going forward this month. So how are you, Harlan? How are you, Sky?
Sky, do you want to take us off?
Go ahead, Harlan.
Oh, okay, I can jump. I'm good, guys. Thank you very much. I've got Scar, Matt, and for anyone who can't see right now, I'm holding them up. So we had a good weekend. But I really want to talk about NA Continentals and the dying deck that is Sapphire Steel, as I don't think we've started one episode where Alphos hasn't had a dig at Sapphire Steel.
No, it's not dying. Trust me, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah, it'll be back, boys.
But how are you doing, Sky?
I'm good. So I just got back from NA Continentals this weekend. Spoiler alert, I didn't do very well. I was playing Sapphire Steel. I don't think it was because of the deck, but we'll go into that later. But I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm back to the 9 to 5, back to working. So real life. But I had a great time, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, you've exited the magical world of Disneyland and competitive Lorcana and gone back to the grind.
Yeah, I walked out of the castle and back to the office. So
taking the glass slippers off, the clock striked midnight, and you're back to being a normal girl.
Did it feel quite magical? Because ours was all done in the Newport Hotel, which is like themed like a seaside resort in like the 40s or 60s or whatever it was. Like, what venue did they have there?
So I stayed at 2 different hotels. They offered discounts at the Disneyland Hotel, which is usually like I think $900 a night or just something insane. So they give you like a third off, and I've always wanted to like stay on one of the hotels on property because I always just stay on the ones that are like the Holiday Inn or whatever on Harbor Boulevard, because you get like huge discount versus $900 a night. But yeah, I paid $300 to get into the Disneyland Hotel, and it was cool. My room didn't have hot water, unfortunately. I had like lukewarm at best shower, which was kind of insane for paying that much for a hotel, but it was cool. The hotel is super old, and there's like a lot of history there. So for a Disney person, it was cool to get to stay there.
I think fundamentally I'd turn into a full Karen if I'd spent that much. I've not got hot water. Like,
I thought
about be racking on services decks. Be like, come on, mate. Do you not have a working boiler at this time of year in this corner of the country?
Initially, I thought it was like maybe some sort of California energy restriction. I was like, man, are all the rooms like this, or like all the hotels in the area like this? So, but then I was like, no, there's no way. But I was only staying there 2 nights, so I wasn't gonna go call up maintenance or try to change my room.
In fairness, wasn't there also the like California wildfires at the exact same time? So there may well
there was
some water restrictions.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of that either, but it would have been a power restriction. There was plenty of water. It was just like no hot water.
How did that affect the event? Because of course they were tweeting about it, and it was horrible to hear. But did it affect the actual event much? People were saying wear masks and things.
No. I think thankfully there wasn't much. Like, I guess the only thing that could carry over into the Anaheim area would be the smoke. I think most of that was like happened like on Thursday, and it kind of cleared up by Friday and the weekend. But I think on Saturday or Sunday I looked, and the air quality was like the same as where I'm at in Nebraska, and so it was completely fine. But
that's good.
I know some people's flights got canceled or rescheduled going into like LAX. Thankfully mine didn't. But yeah, so nothing impacted the event.
And we get to see Rip Lungs, who's another player. Shout out to him. Not everyone would know who he is, but he had a very traumatic experience getting to the event because of his cancelled flights.
Oh, and really? Then one of the unlucky ones.
And then he went and won his pod and got into being the NA Cup. And it was like a real Disney story type thing, you know, where he was struggling to get... I think he got there at like 4 in the morning or something. Like, I was following his tweets.
Yeah. And I saw that picture. That's iconic.
Yeah, and then he managed to win it, and he did this little video about it, and he's done loads of videos. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. That's what these sort of events are about, especially the last chance qualifiers.
I'm telling you, mate, sleep deprived is the way. Every event I've ever done well, I've done sleep deprived.
I did mine sleep deprived. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks because I stayed up late practicing with Justin, the gentleman who made the deck. And then I said I'd sleep on the 10-hour coach trip there from London to France.
Which I knew you were never going to be able to sleep on that coach trip.
Which we didn't manage to. I think we got like an hour or two.
I'd also offered you my half of the bed, and I gotta say, after you qualified, you still didn't end up in my hotel room, and there was like a cold spot on the other half of the bed reserved for you. Like, I really miss you, mate. You could have been there with me.
Bless you. I mean, I would love to. I was just so excited. I remember, like, I went with Artabacks to get a McDonald's. Like, didn't really know what I was doing at that point. But I guess because for you, Sky, you didn't go through the LCQ pod. You got your qualification a while ago. How did you feel like? On that Friday, did you go on the Friday and were there?
I got there like at 8 p.m. on Friday, right when the registration was closing. So I pretty much just scrambled in to grab my badge before they shut down, and then like went and had dinner. So I didn't really do anything Lorcana. I was just chilling for that night.
How did you like feel going into the event?
I felt super good. I was actually I wasn't super nervous. Like obviously there's right before the first round you get a little bit of nerves, but going into the event I was just super excited to like showcase the blue steel deck that I built. This is like one of the first times where I like really put a bunch of time in for a paper event and like tested like all the relevant matchups, hundreds of games pretty much leading up to this, and I felt really good about a deck that I think most people kind of wrote off as just getting power crypt out this set. So yeah, I felt excited going into it, and I'm always that player that like wants to just get done with like the first round and just kind of get started, because like once I feel like that like shakes off all the nerves, you like get the day going, kind of get a feel for like how the rest of the day is going to pan out. And so
as much as it shouldn't, it really does set like the momentum and the tone for the day.
Yeah, I think I let it set the momentum too much. Like I think I need to be a little bit more mentally resilient to like the first 2 rounds, but
No, I entirely agree, because even for mine was on stream, and I remember going like, I had quite an unorthodox deck, and I thought if I can just not go 7 losses now, like I'll be quite happy. And I won the game.
Yeah, started off 2 as the greatest, right? You just have that energy, and especially if you're on stream like you were, that's just you're floating after that.
Win game 1, and you think, all right, so there's a chance here, and then it's split it, and of course splitting, you feel a bit weary. It's kind of like cushioning for not getting 0-2'd, really, isn't it? Because you wanted the 2-0. So it's that weird feeling of, all right, well, this wasn't the best result, but I guess it's also not the worst, and you don't really know where to go with that one. But if you 2-0 round 1, I know what you mean. You sort of feel like, wow, okay, this is how the day's going. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think if you start 0-1 and then you go 1-1, it feels pretty good, because you've saved yourself from the 0-2 and essentially like saved your life in the tournament. But then if you start 1-0 and it goes 1-1, it feels like you've sort of given up your chance to like push towards that top cut.
Yeah,
everybody wants to be that position where you start the first 3 rounds went with 3 wins, and you're going to have the best resistance. So even if the next 1-1 or 2 1-1s, you're probably just chilling. You're not going to worry about the bubble because you started off 3-0.
Because getting that first 0-2, if you do get it, I mean, you can still go to win, but it's just, your pairings will be strange, your resistance is strange, you're not going to be in a great mood because you just got 0-2'd as well, so they're going to be off your game. So I'm exactly the same. That first round, I'm like, even when we did the Store Champs thing, like, it wasn't as big an event, of course, but everyone was quite relaxed to getting started a bit later, and I was like, I just want to play Lorcana. I just want to get the first round done, just to set the like precedent of what's going to be happening today.
For Store Champ specifically, I mean, Sky knows this. I was like, Sky, I need a deck. so he gave me one of the older versions just before he changed it for NA Champs, and I got 1 practice game in the night before Store Champ, so I really wasn't expecting anything out of it. But I was, quite surprised at, I mean, obviously people weren't playing the most meta decks, aside from maybe Baker on Red Purple, but I was quite surprised at how well it held up. Because every new Lorcana set, you feel like with all the new cards, maybe the power level has significantly changed, but actually the power creep's quite slow. Like, there's a few new cards here and there, but for the most part, most decks are similar in strength and in how they play compared to the set before.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the power creep with this game is like sneaky because we have like all the same archetypes, the same cores of the decks are still there, so it's like only a few cards change each set. It's really tough to like feel like a power creep, but oftentimes it is enough to like just those few percentage points in a couple matchups to knock your deck out of a whole tier and being like not up there with the big dogs anymore.
Which I think just more speaks to how well balanced the game is, because if only a couple percentage points are shifting you down an entire tier, just shows how close together all the decks are in terms of power level.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd say as well, sort of at the event, how did you feel like the meta of the room was? Because when we checked the meta report they put on the stream, it was actually 8%, I think it was Sapphire Steel, with sadly a 0% conversion rate. But I think it was better than Emerald Amethyst, like meta represented. Like it was higher by a certain percentage point. Like how was it?
I thought it was 8 people in total.
Oh, 8 people. Sorry, but it was I can't remember. It was at like so much percent.
It's still higher than I thought. I thought it was gonna be like 5 or 6 or something.
Yeah,
we
like
probably should have got the screen grab
right,
before I
for
started
NHMs?
talking about it. But
now you're good.
yeah, but I remember it being higher than like I think it was Emerald Amethyst or something like that. It was fairly well represented for a deck that you say has been ruled out. But there are like some mainstays for that deck. Like I think Lamb was in the room, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And there was
we had a group huddled of like 5 of us, and we were trying to figure out who the other 3 were and like get them into the huddle by like round 3.
Yeah.
I didn't find out who else it was, but I'm sure they were out there.
But you get with these events as well, like people talk before an event and they try and predict and stuff. Like, what was the atmosphere going into like the start of the event? Like, what were people thinking? Did you predict the meta that you saw as well?
So I didn't participate in the LCQ, and I wasn't even in the room for that. So maybe that was like the biggest indicator that people kind of go off at these type of events. But I think most people kind of agreed that Red Blue was still just going to be massive, like probably the most played. And as the day went on, everybody kind of saw that was true. Like there was so many Red Blue mirrors at the top tables. It was just like way overrepresented and overperforming at the top tables. One thing that I was kind of surprised on, and maybe I just missed them, but there wasn't a whole lot of the Mind deck. I know Kurt did well with was essentially the Mind deck.
Yeah.
Right, so he was playing it, but just looking around, I didn't see very much of it, and I was like, man, did I play 4 Jim Hawkins for nothing? Like, was this just 4 wasted deck slots for just a deck that was just not even here? But I think Amber Steel was actually, the third most represented deck, so maybe between that and Steel, maybe there just wasn't as much Minds as between the two as I thought versus regular
going back
songs.
to what we said in last week's podcast, and you also pointed out correctly, people do like adapt to the LCQ a lot. So I think the LCQ did have quite a lot of Amber Steel, and it did have a good amount of Red Blue too. But going into NA Champs, especially with how much hype there was around the Minds deck, I think that's why we saw such a quick turn back to Red Blue and ended up being a pretty similar like deck population that we saw in EU Champs, just because the cyclical nature of the meta just went full circle between EU Champs and NA Champs, because everyone's like, how do we counter the Amethyst decks? Go to the Steel decks, go to this Mind deck, and then right back to Red Blue, which counters that deck.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. And in my testing experience, the Red Blue versus like the Minds deck it's like pretty close to 50-50. It should just usually be who wins on the play. But the Red Blue deck has a much better chance at winning going second, which probably makes it 60-40. So I think those 2 decks were, the first 2 decks to get tested against whatever people wanted to play. So they had plenty of experience and to figure that out, that hey, Red Blue still just beats this deck even though it's super quick.
What would you say so Ed goes on to win it, and of course if we look at his build, it's very unique. It's very much, Ed's a player who likes to look up and meta predict. And he did the same thing when he won his DLC as well. And I think he'll probably be the first to tell you as well, like, there's certain matchups where he didn't want to get it. He got 0-2'd by Doc Mines, I think, in Swiss. And, if that was one of his top 16, top 8 games, I'm pretty sure he might have not carried on. So, what do you think would have been the best deck for that room then? Do you still think it's the Sapphire Steel list?
For me, it'd be Sapphire Steel.
Yeah,
if I were to pick any other deck, I would like, if I had Ed's knowledge, I would have picked his deck. When I look at that deck and when I saw what he had constructed for it, I was like, okay, this is like genius. This makes complete sense. Like, you can play that control grind out game versus red blue. You have the Flynn to just kind of win going first against that matchup, and I think he, like many others, knew that red blue was going to be super represented. The only matchup where I'd be kind of scared would be the Steel Song and the Mine deck. Like I think I watched a Candio versus No I'm Not in the the CCS 10K.
I don't think he felt very favoured into the green steel either, or he Elsa and cards
really?
Elsa and other cards I think he felt would have been stronger, of course. Right. Even the Genie would have been another thing that was stronger, but I don't think it was that bad. And also it's really good we had that conversation of, I know I'd bring Sapphire Steel, but what do you think's the actual deck that should get brought to that room if you have the tech knowledge for it? I think the Ruby Amethyst was a strong pick.
Yeah, the way
I also specifically really like Ed's Ruby Amethyst build for predicting a red-blue room, right? Because switching completely to 4 Tremaines and ignoring Medusas when, the nature really we've been talking about was recommending people Medusas to deal with the Mines deck, deal with these Load of the Ground decks for Amethyst decks. But by playing 4 Tremaine and expecting a room full of red-blue, he really could focus on playing that value matchup, being able to deal with some of these higher threat targets.
Yeah, Ed is like a crazy good deck builder, and I think he's like just one of those guys that takes the colors to the absolute limit of what you can kind of change up for a meta, or what you can do into an expected meta if you get those matchups. I remember the first time I met Ed and the first time I played him was when I qualified in Chicago, and I remember it was open deck list day 2. I was playing to get into top 16, and he played like a very, very different version of red purple, kind of like he brought to this one. Like it was, I think green steel was like the biggest deck at the time. And like a lot of red purple players were scared to bring red purple because it had a tough matchup versus Bucky sometimes. But he teched that thing out so well it was much lower to the ground, just like straight up cards, removal, just like 4 Brawl, 4 Medusa, just everything to make that matchup better. I was like, wow, it's much better against me or for me, but I can see why you made it to this top table when 35% of the field was green steel, because he just had this will to adapt the deck to the meta that a lot of red purple players didn't really care to explore.
It's funny you bring that up actually, because I remember doing this is when I still did tournament reports, and I did a whole YouTube video on it, and that really stood out to me how much he had teched it for green steel specifically, and you just have to have confidence that you're reading the meta correctly and that's going to be the most broad deck.
Because with sorry,
I was just gonna say, if you have the time to dive in like I'm sure he did, and you have the the resources to test that matchup infinitely, you can be bold and you can cut cards that most red purple players would just say, oh, you can't cut that. I would never think of doing that. You can show up with the list that turns some heads for even traditional red purple players.
I remember his actual DLC winning list, it had the double Sisu or maybe 1 Sisu at that time, and that was for the Bucky. You could get the shift.
I think he had 2.
Yeah, you could get the shift on your Sisu, and then you could take out Bucky, and you wouldn't lose the tempo because you had to play a Be Prepared on 7. But I remember also saying that this was a time when Sapphire Steel was quite popular because it had a good matchup into Bucky. He said, "Oh yeah, but the deck wasn't built to beat Sapphire Steel as well." He'd meta called and said, "I'm going to be playing into a lot of Buckies here, so I'm just going to lose points on these matchups, but buff up these other ones." And he's just an amazing player for doing that.
I think a lot of people do fall into that trap of wanting to have the answer to every matchup, but you've got to make a call on the meta and think what proportion of the meta is being played by what, and just aim at beating the most popular matchups, especially in NA champs and EU champs specifically, where the room of people is so small, so finite, that you're going to see a much more homogenous room because everyone's talking to each other. They've got similar ideas onto what's going to be the best deck, so you're much less likely to see as wide and as varied of a meta as you might see in a DLC Swiss.
Yeah,
for sure. That's actually something that I think I need to work on a little bit. Is I don't know if this just comes from being a blue steel player and just adjusting the list for every set to try to account for everything in the meta. But I think like I said, I was playing for Jim Hawkins. I probably should have just made the call that hey, Mines has got a huge target. I probably won't see it very often, and just played some other stuff. I think I tried to put in everything to cover my bases for every matchup that I could see versus putting all my eggs in the 3 decks that I actually think I will see the most and just hope I don't hit the one of them.
Yeah, no, playing your list at the media set champs, we didn't have any Mines players, no Green Steel players, no Amber Steel players. So I think I inked Jim Hawkins every single time. I don't think I ever got
Yeah.
a miss
I
out
think
of
you
all
played
game.
it against me, but
Oh,
we could
yeah.
watch it back. I don't know if you did. Yeah.
No, I think I did. Yeah, I think that was the first time I'd ever played that card. Was against you in the finals.
Yeah, he doesn't get played often if it's not a
Yeah.
deck with Daisy Duck
No,
in it.
yeah.
Or just aggressive. He's fine then too.
But there is that thing of trying to get Sapphire Steel in that good spot, and it was a good thing you mentioned because people will go, I just have one of him, I just have like one of that character, one
Yeah.
of that character, and then you spread it so thin that you don't actually do good into anything because you've got like a one-off Jim Hawkins, you've got like two Jim Hawkins or whatever, and you've got two of that. Which I've tried to do. I think one of my current lists has tried to do that, and it's like, hold on, I'm not good into anything, and I just keep never drawing the cards I need at the right time. So it's better to just go in on a play, isn't it, and say, right, this deck beats that, and these other ones, I just take my chances.
Yeah,
But I
for
mean,
sure.
hey, if you have the best luck in the world and you can just preordain to call every one of, just play 60 individual cards.
You can do.
There you go.
That's all you
Yeah.
need. Yeah.
Easily.
I think this game is like also rewards going all in on a card, if that makes sense. Like four of versus playing like those two ofs and one ofs of like, especially cards like Jim Hawkins where you want to drop it on two, just because like, especially a deck like Blue Steel where you mulligan super heavy for Flavershim and Quill.
Yeah.
You want to be mulliganing heavy, and if you have four copies of Jim Hawkins, you can say, okay, I know this matchup is Amber Steel. I want to see that on two. I'm just gonna pitch my other two drop and just Hail Mary because I have four of it. It's a decent shot that I get it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had a two of, you can't. You're like, I don't want to pitch this Smee. Like even though Jim is much better in this matchup, I only have two Jim, and I'm probably not gonna see it.
Right, yeah. No, so I think like having a four of Jim Hawkins, if it did end up being like a Mines meta at NA Champs, would have like really helped you, right? Because when you can consistently find that counter card.
Yeah, before playing Jim, and that was like the deck I was really trying to crack. I could not get it to win on the draw almost ever versus that deck. They had to really brick for it to be good. So but then testing Jim, it was much better. It was like, okay, the matchup is actually kind of favored now. You can win on the draw if you go Jim into Fishbone Quill, and like hold up their Daisy for a couple turns.
And to that point you make as well, I played your Noel list like in testing locally, and I really like just the full commitment to the Cheacher. Yeah, I'm going to be playing Cheacher. And even when I played against Alphos, he was like, and a Cheacher was just always there on too. And the deck I was building is like, yeah, I could answer it, but it's so awkward. I think like the only appropriate answer is Cinderella singing like the Storm Rager. Besides that, everything else just feels clunky. Like play Brawl on it, that just doesn't feel right either. So I really like
normally they can't brawl. It's a little bit too
And
slow.
yeah, I mean, I remember like at one point Baker when I played against them, they were like, I didn't find a brawl for the Cheacher. I was like, I'm not entirely sure you want to brawl.
No,
the Cheacher.
you
Like,
saved
you're
for the
giving up a
Hiram.
big turn of tempo for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like before, right, when you just ran Hirems, they could easily save their brawls until you played the Hirem, and it felt like you could never make a Hirem stick. But by having 4 Cheacher, 4 Hirem, you can sort of bait out their brawls with the Cheacher, or just they let the Cheacher stick and they later brawl the Hirem, but then hey, you've drawn cards from Cheacher, right?
Yeah.
Right, he just netted you like 4 cards, which is typically enough, and you just go into Tomato
Yeah.
or something in those matchups.
Very much we did our Seattle practice. It was that I was on Ruby Amethyst practicing to you guys, and it was like, I just don't know which to brawl and when to brawl. I guess it is the Hiram. But then it's like, what if you never play a Hiram and I've got a brawl set in my hand and I've just been doing nothing with it? But
So it only
yeah.
makes sense if you have like 2 brawls where you can brawl the Cheacher and then have another brawl for
Even
Hirem.
then, that's 6 ink worth over 2 turns, and it's like, I'm pretty sure a Sisu would have been just better to play to like close the game out for you, rather than.
And it's
so,
inefficient ink, right? Because you're playing the free ink on turn 4 and the free ink on turn
Yeah.
5.
So it was just really cool to see like going in on Cheacher. I've been quite a fan of the card.
Sure, yeah. The only deck that I think you can double brawl is like Red Blue. Red Blue's the only deck that's double brawled like a Chicha and then I Quill into Flavershim, and it feels kind of bad if they have like,
Yeah.
because then you're just kind of way slowed down, and they just play Hiram the next turn. They have all the time in the world to do whatever they want.
Mm.
Yeah, because we have a deck that can afford to really stall out the pace of the game and make neutral plays. Because if they make neutral plays, we eventually win late because we have the most value of any deck in the game.
Sure. I guess Red Purple can do it too if they play Flynn on 2, because then they stop your Chicha from, or they get their Flynn 4.
Yeah. But obviously there's these niche scenarios, but for the most part, right, she just sticks quite hard, and it's very tough to deal with unless you have super efficient
yeah.
answers.
Yeah, you always want her on 2 versus the red deck. She's an all-star for card draw.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as NA champs go, Sapphire Steel experience, maybe wasn't the golden age for Sapphire Steel specifically, but do you know what was the golden age for Sapphire Steel? Seattle. That no-wheel deck was nuts, but even more enjoyable than that was us three becoming so close in Seattle, for the three musketeers of Sapphire Steel hanging out. I mean, since we're all on a podcast together, and this is a Life and Lorcana podcast, how about that Life?
Oh yeah, with Life and Lorcana. I remember because I took the flight and you leave at 10 at night and you get there and it's bright daylight, so I skipped any sleep. And I got no 3G or anything like that, no Wi-Fi, no data. I was trying to find Sky in that campus, university campus that we were staying on.
Yeah, we were staying at a Greek house essentially. There was parties several nights out of the week.
I remember walking down there.
Explain that for our non-American viewers. What is a Greek house?
Gosh, how do I? It's just students that go to uni that essentially are part of either a fraternity or sorority, so a brotherhood or sisterhood, and they are notorious for partying, especially at the start of a school year. So, and for us it was Halloween, so there was parties till 2 a.m. on 2 of the nights.
I remember when I was walking there, from the train station, it must have been, and there was those red cups with the white bit on the
solo cup.
And I was that's a thing? They're real and they actually use them? Because I was I've just seen it in movies. I didn't think it was real. And then I got to meet Sky, and it was don't know, just really interesting, isn't it? Sort of meeting someone you've only chatted to online. But yeah, I had a really great time there as well. We didn't particularly like the place we stayed at. Well, I didn't mind it, but we had a couple times.
I was whatever. I just felt bad because I offered Harlan to stay with me, and I picked out this Airbnb that was just dirt cheap. It was a beat down fraternity house, so I didn't expect much, but it was pretty run down. The bed was super musty. It smelled like they hadn't washed it in I don't know, since the past 10 tenants. And it was there was no heating in the house. There was old radiators that the knobs were broken, so you couldn't even turn it on. They said they would get maintenance to do it, but they never did. And yeah, it was an interesting experience. I actually felt how in some movies there's that stereotype of a character moves to a big city or New York City for the first time, and they're in that apartment with the exposed brick wall and the pipes hanging down with a rat. That was how I felt walking into this place, and I was okay, this is kind of cool. I'm kind of roughing it out here, and then I was okay, no heat. I got another guy coming, and I picked out this place. I feel awful. There's freezing cold. We have one blanket to share.
Oh, it was cold.
It was fine. It was all right.
I'm glad I got the experience of sleeping there before Harlan came, because I got the new.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys both had the full experience. That I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at us, all three on a podcast, slept in the same rough housing situation for a Lorcana tournament.
Memories for life. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a good time in Seattle. And that's sort of I wish I could do more at events. I kind of didn't do that much in European ones, because it was I'd been to France and Italy, but I was I've never been to the States, and Seattle seemed cool, so I got there a bit earlier, and we got to see some of Seattle, didn't we? And just do non-Lorcana stuff, but also get to travel, and that's a really good aspect of the hobby, is that you get to travel and just explore.
Well, for me, before Bologna, and Bologna was only a couple of days, but especially before Seattle, everyone would be people in real life or friends and family are wow, have you gone to this country? You went to France, you went to Germany, right? It must have been so cool. What did you do? It was I don't know, sat in a convention center, played some card games, went back to the hotel, slept, maybe had a drink, it's not really doing much. And it's it feels like a bit of a waste if you're, going out to all these countries and meeting all these people. At least you want to build a few memories around it too, if you're making the effort out there, especially for Bologna specifically, where it's the worst tournament I've ever performed in. I would have hated that trip, just because I expect a lot of myself, and I really work hard to try and perform. But just the fact that I had spent the time to be a bit of a tourist and explore Italy, I mean, that was one of my favorite trips, despite how bad I did, like, card game wise.
For sure, yeah. It's nice to have like a good time before you get to the event, or like at least have a good time lined up after, right? If you're just doing like a weekend trip, like it's pretty much you're like, if I don't do well, like it's like not the best time, right? Like if you like actually go out and take time to plan out some stuff and like enjoy like the local area, do some like sightseeing like we did, it feels a lot better
you get
to do
something to take away from it. It's not all about the event. It's like, oh, we had this as well. Because if it's just the event, and as you like Alphos just said, if it doesn't go your way, it's like we flew there, didn't do very well.
You just feel like you just like
back.
sunk a bunch of money and time into something that gave you nothing.
I had the same thing of like friends and family. They were like people who are kind of almost jealous that you got to travel this much, and it's like, yeah, but sometimes it's literally get off a flight, go to a hotel room, and go to a big convention center for like 9 hours, go back to the hotel and leave. It's like I didn't get to explore. Like that's happened a few times, but
it's like I was literally in a room sweating for 9 hours and getting a headache.
yeah. Especially with this one, it's like, oh, you went to Disneyland. I'm like, I know you did enjoy it, but I didn't. I got there literally the morning of the event. I went on the overnight coach there, so like I did not get to explore Disneyland or have any fun there. But everyone in their heads
you didn't get to go to Disney at all, even after?
No, I mean, yeah, I just thought I just like traveled. I traveled a lot, so I was like, I won't spend that much money. Probably won't go to Disneyland, but
it is so much traveling.
You should have known you'd qualify and been like, oh, I'll get the money, I can afford it.
It's like I mentioned on the podcast already, but like I thought I wasn't even going to qualify, so I'd booked a way home that night on the Friday, and then like
oh my god.
Yeah, because I had the return on my coach, but by round 3, I was like, well, I have to stay for tomorrow to get like the Baymax and the Cusco promos, and they were like good enough. And then I was like, round 4, I was like, oh my god, I actually should just stay to see if I actually make it. And then by 5, it was just amazing. But no, I didn't get to explore any Disneyland. I'd been when I was younger, of course, but it looked like you had good fun.
Yeah, there is another story. I don't know if you guys remember me telling you this in Seattle, but this is a story about like the trade-off between practicing and playing. But I specifically thought to myself, if I had a podcast, I'd tell this story. And it was when the dreadful day where we spent 12 hours practicing against Specky's purple steel list, preparing for the Seattle tournament. And I was so upset because I was like, what am I doing on my holiday? I've already practiced so much on like Lorcana, like online tabletop simulator, Lorcana, whatever. Like, why am I doing this now? And then we end up choosing to do more touristing tomorrow, and us three have a great time. We took that great Chad photo, with the bubble tea and posted it to Twitter.
That is a core memory of Alphos. He will never forget that.
Core memory. But then, so it comes to the end of the tournament after day 1 on Saturday, right? I'm talking with Zach Bivens and Jan Moyen. And then I'm like, man, I'm so glad we didn't spend another 12 hours in another card shop that looks like any other card shop in the world, because I only made top 128, and like it wouldn't have felt worth it if I didn't make day 2. Then Moyen turns to me and he goes, yeah, well, maybe if you spend another 12 hours, you would have made day 2. I just could not stop laughing. It's just the most Moyen statement to make.
Moyen is certainly built different, and you can tell, like, if you've talked to him, that he's kind of just that disciplined card game guy that really takes it seriously. But I didn't expect it to be like when when we were had a call practicing before this, he was like, I expect 80% practice and 20% exploring. And I thought he was joking. I thought it was like sarcasm.
Oh, you thought it was a joke. I knew he was I was like, guys, how much exploring, how much practice are we going to do? He's like, and he basically said, like, I was going to go 90%, but to be nice, 80%. Right?
Yeah.
That was the best part
of it. He was
joking,
but I knew he was 100% serious.
He was like, oh yeah, I made it a bit easier for you guys, so I dropped it down to 85, but of course I prefer 95%. That week was just mad because I turned up a little bit later than you guys, and you guys had 2 or 3 more days, and you were like, yeah, no, I've been here in this store playing and practicing for 12
Yeah,
and I couldn't believe it.
By the time Harlan showed up, Alphos was like losing his mind. He was like, all right, I have all day tomorrow. If I'm in a card shop, like for any amount of time, it's like, no, I'm not doing
because it was only the decks as well that we brought for the events, really, wasn't it? So it was.
We didn't have everything.
We didn't have anything to practice against. But
like poor Moyen was stuck with Spessy just testing like the same matchup, his Broom Purple Steel for like literally 8 hours a day.
Well, the next day we went out and we left them together, and yeah, could you just imagine if it's like 12 hours? Like, I mean,
yeah, it was like actually the whole day.
Could I imagine, Harlan? I don't need to imagine. I went through it.
Well, I knew it was gonna be bad too. The first night that we went and got Chipotle, which is like whatever. Like somebody was like, okay, let's just go get Chipotle. But then after that, like Moyen was like, oh, should we go to Chipotle again? That was good. Like let's go again. Like just because it's like cheap, it's like quick. Like he knows it's gonna be good. Like he can get back to testing. I was like, dude, we're like in Seattle. Like, there's like this place is famous for
so
like
much
food.
good food.
Yeah, like let's splurge a little bit on like an hour-long sit-down restaurant for Pete's sake. But yeah,
the best
it was
thing
a fun times though.
But we made up for it. Like Harlan, especially you and me, Sky. We went on some food ventures, buddy. We ate.
Yeah,
good.
dude, I still tell people about that hand-pulled noodle place that you took us to.
Yeah,
that was so good.
Nice.
That was insane. I'll have to go back there at some point.
I remember we did go to a restaurant the day I turned up, but it was more of a fast foodie thing. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, the Vietnamese place.
Yeah, it was like a Vietnamese. It was nice.
And
the Bonwich sandwich, is that what we're talking about?
Is it? It could have been a chain. I wasn't even sure.
No. The one he's thinking of is after the 12 hours in a card shop, we got that Vietnamese place that was nearby in the area. Like there wasn't a lot of food in the area, but that place looked nice.
Yeah, it was the place where Harlan got like the side of rice noodles or whatever with this meal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good too. That was really good.
And the thing as well, next time I learned, for when the next time I go to America, is like the tipping culture, because it didn't make any sense to me.
Oh no!
And it was like when I was in like one of the restaurants.
For a monster, bro.
Yeah,
that was bad.
It was in that like Mexican food restaurant, and like because when you buy just everything in America says like, do you want a tip? I was like, well, this is a restaurant, but all I bought was a Monster Energy drink, and I was like tipping them, and Sky was like, yeah, you don't have to do that.
It was like one of those little tiny restaurants inside the
it was like a school trip in there as well. It was so busy.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, I order, it's like literally fast food. I pick it up from the cash, like the register, and I go about my day. And Harlan goes and grabs a Monster, and he like tips him. I'm like, it's just a Monster from the fridge, like. Nobody even touched this. You're the only one that touched what you consumed.
Dude, Harlan and I were just like, we were dreadfully unaware of tipping culture, but we were also like so afraid to be impolite that we just tipped everything. Like,
I was so afraid to be like,
25%, 30%.
Do you remember when we got boba and it was just like a kiosk and essentially not that far off a vending machine, and then we just picked it up from the counter? Like, I was still like, well, I guess I tipped 20%. Like, I tipped 20% on everything. I was like, I don't want them to walk away thinking,
I just didn't want to be
foreigner
rude.
Not tipping 20%. This impolite arsehole tourist. I was like, I gotta avoid that situation.
Did we tip in that Halloween shop that we went to on the last day?
Yeah, no, I did.
You did?
Oh my gosh, did you guys go to that one that was by the...
Yeah, the Spirit Halloween by the uni campus.
I think you donated as well, didn't you?
Oh, something like that, yeah.
I almost fell in shock when I heard how much like Halloween stuff is, but it was really cool to go to America on like Halloween weekend, isn't it? What you called?
Yeah, that was cool.
Because like all of the subways and stuff.
Halloween weekend bar crawl after the tournament, just accidentally went there with the lab guys. That was really cool.
Yeah, and like ping pong and stuff like that was in there.
Shuffleboard. The Americans didn't know how to play shuffleboard, but I taught this recently engaged couple how to play shuffleboard. Harlan was going to play 2v2, but he got a bit shy and walked off.
We went over, right? Okay, and I don't know the rules to shuffleboard, but it took like 30 minutes. You know, and at this point, I'm just thinking, like,
it took like 5 minutes.
It was not. It felt like forever. So I was like, I'm just gonna walk away because I wasn't even listening. So I was like, so by the end of this long conversation, I'm gonna have to ask him to repeat the rules of shuffleboard because I wasn't listening to any of it. But yeah, and I really loved in America as well. You could just say hello to anyone, and they'd like actually want to have a chat with you. Whereas
people just nice.
I asked for directions out of the venue, and they were like, "Oh, how are you?" And like, it was like some student. It was really nice. But in like London, they'll be like, "You what, mate?" They'll like jump
Piss
you.
off.
Yeah, they won't like it. So it was just a really nice change as well that everyone was so friendly over there.
No. In London, they'll tip their earbud out, look at you like, "Are you trying to talk to me?" and then put it back in and keep walking.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to.
You guys need to come to the Midwest then, because
Yes.
the Midwest is like the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like they'll like relish in just like seeing you smile over here. Like I remember there was a Chinese exchange student that I went to like take, like he was looking for like a gift or something for his girlfriend to send, and like we went to like some store that had like wine or something, or wine tasting, and like the lady was just like said hi, like set him up to do like a wine sample and see if he liked it or something. And we walked out of the store and he goes like, "Why are people so nice here?" He was like genuinely confused like at why anybody would like be so kind to him, and I was like, that's just how people are.
Yeah, we had that moment as well. We went onto the like train subway station, and there was two people doing that like barn dance type thing.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, is that just what you do when you go clubbing in the States? Like, I was so
No,
confused.
no.
And they did it really well. They were really
Do you mean
good
like
at
the line
it.
dancing?
I was
Yeah,
surprised to see line dancing though in Seattle, because that's kind of like a like cowboy type thing, I guess.
Yeah, they were having their like big city moment, you know.
They-
I'm away
yeah.
from the Midwest, you know. Let's get some line dancing in.
And my favorite thing as well was 7-Eleven, the like cheap pizza you could get. I still even dream about that. I really
It's
loved
the
it.
pizza, the pizza. That's why you like it.
It was
I
like-
never understood why you're like so obsessed with 7-Eleven. You
It
didn't
was
even
like
tell
$2
me.
or $3 for like a slice or something like that. And I was like, this is just like the best thing I've ever seen. Like I love this so much.
Mate, Harlan, you should go to New York, mate. They do like dollar slices.
Oh,
mate.
that would be. I mean, I will try and make an American one next year as well because I really like them. I want to try do the Oceanic and Asian ones, but like I think America again would be brilliant.
Mm.
And Alphos, in case Harlan didn't tell you this, on like I think one of the last nights when we were walking back to the Airbnb, Harlan like really wanted to go back to 7-Eleven. I don't even remember what you needed to get, but we like
Oh, it was raining.
it was pouring
Oh,
rain
that
like
night.
so hard, and like we
walked.
went there was two 7-Elevens that were kind of close by our Airbnb, and I kind of thought I knew the way to one of them. And I think like we like stopped halfway and realized that the other one was like much closer. It was either that or one of them was closed.
Mm.
I can't remember, but we
this
ended up
point-
getting to the second one. It was closed too, and we were just like had gotten completely drenched for nothing. We
I
didn't
think
get
it
to
is
go
at
into
that
7-Eleven.
point it was
That's
like
so sad.
we're so it's raining and we're wet. I was just like I didn't mind like being,
Yeah, like
being
by the
in
time we
water.
didn't get to the first one, I was like, okay, I mean, we'll just
Yeah.
5 more minutes of this. I'm already soaked through this, so yeah.
Back to our venue. Back to our campus room. Yeah.
Our university experience.
And when they changed the lock on the door once, because for some reason the
Oh,
Airbnb
no.
host
Nah,
and
nah,
like this guy like walked. He was inside the room, like walked across, and like I was knocking, and I was like, "Please let me in. I stay above." And they were like, "No, you need to like prove it." And I was like, "Oh my god, how do I prove this?" Because I didn't book the Airbnb on my phone, so it was like
that was just a cursed night.
that
for
was
sure.
bad. I mean, it was
So
like we weren't having a great stay, and then we try and get back, and for some reason the host changed the lock to the door, and it was like it's probably a security reason, but this is so bad timing. Like this is
Yeah.
horrible.
Because you didn't have like cell phone connection, right?
It was really
normally.
I didn't have
You
any
needed,
data.
Harlan needed Wi-Fi, and I was the only one that was like in on the Airbnb thing. So she messaged me, and like Harlan doesn't have Wi-Fi unless he has, or doesn't have
Oh.
cell phone communication unless he has Wi-Fi.
You gave me
I was
a
like,
phone
I was at a
number.
hockey game with Alphos. We went to a
Oh yeah,
Kraken
that
game.
was great actually. That
Having
was
the having the time of our life, and then like
yeah, it was amazing.
yeah, and
Weren't we trying
Harlan's
to
like
book a
locked out,
locksmith?
and like I was like, what
As
did you
well.
say?
Weren't we trying to book a locksmith at that point as well?
Yeah, okay, so not
Yeah.
only did they change the code, but I think I locked the key in the room or something. Yeah, that was what happened.
Oh yeah.
So I had to like late at night message the Airbnb person, get figured out. I called like a locksmith that like said it was gonna be like at least $350-$400 for just like a lock that I could probably just like punch the door and it would open.
You could
And
breathe on it.
I was like,
Yeah.
dude, there's no way. Like, I will wait until like whatever the next morning until their Airbnb person can come and charge me $50
Yeah.
or something.
I mean,
So yeah, that was not good.
I don't want to be rude about the Airbnb host to affect your Airbnb score, but my God, they were so unhelpful. And they were like,
Yeah,
because when
that
you
was
phoned them and
terrible.
said, we're locked out and we can't get in a room, and it was sort of like, well, sucks to be you. Like, it wasn't like, we'll come and
Yeah, it was
help you
like
at all.
30 minutes ago was when my maintenance person's like shift or whatever, like last round went out. We can't come help you. And I was like, oh, okay.
So yeah.
Were they like a student renting out their
No,
fraternity house?
I
or
met
was it
them on
like
the
a
last
proper
day,
landlord?
and they weren't. I think they just had the building.
Yeah.
And like they must have used it before for like student accommodation. They were like, well, the money's not coming in on that, so we're doing Airbnb. And it was busy. Like every room was booked every night, and it was always different people. I think
Actually,
people.
that's a really sad commentary on housing. If student housing is being reconverted into tourist Airbnbs, that
I think a
sucks
lot
for
were coming
students.
for like tech jobs and stuff, and like
Yeah,
engineering.
that's what I was
in
about to
that
say.
area,
Like,
It's what it
for sure.
felt like. Yeah.
we ran into a couple of the like people that stayed there, and like they all said they just were staying like 1-2 nights max. I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for a week. And I was like, I was like, oh, it makes sense. You're just coming for like one interview, like whatever. You paid $50 a
Yeah.
night, but I'm like legit living in this place, and I've seen 10 people come and go.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I gotta reflect on this, guys. We had so many fun core memories from this experience, but we maybe could have had it every other event if we just like, if we'd put a bit more effort into trying to have fun outside of just the card gaming, right? Like for Seattle, we really had a blast just because we made the conscious effort to be like, let's have a few days to explore. We got the ice hockey game in, which was amazing. I mean, to all of you Americans, and Canadians, I'm just shocked because I was ready to watch a sports game, and then halfway through it was MMA. Like I did not know why we just suddenly started punching each other, just bam,
Yeah,
bam,
man.
bam. I was really confused.
I mean, honestly, that's why like half the people that like hockey like it, because they just let them fight. It's awesome.
Why did they just let them? I thought you could.
I don't know. It's like
'Cause
like
it
the
sells
Roman
tickets.
Coliseum in there, mate.
sells
There's no
tickets.
rules. There's no ref. It's just they go in the penalty box after punching each other a few times.
I was we, on the last day as well. Me and Alphos did watch a like blowing glass demonstration,
Yeah.
and that was just like, what am I doing here? But it was really quite cool actually. To be honest.
And we went with the
You know.
friend we had made at the bus stop, and they brought like a proper camera and was taking photos of us. It honestly looked like me and Harlan had just gotten engaged. They were really cute.
Oh
photos.
God, yeah, we should probably post that. That was an adorable photo.
We should actually. Eva, please edit in that one photo, and we'll send it into you now.
That,
It was really
that
nice.
bus stop we met them at though, that was like a scene from Resident Evil or something.
Yeah.
Like it was scary. Like
It's like
there
late
was.
at night on Halloween weekend. There's people like drunk out of their mind in
Yeah.
their like half broken Halloween costumes. And like in America, getting the bus is like not as common as it is in other countries. So it almost felt like you were like being looked down on for getting the bus, and they weren't in great condition. And it was just
I was
it felt
scared.
like Walking Dead,
Yeah.
Well, if I remember right, that bus stop had like nobody that was like not just nodding
No,
off out of
there
their
was-
mind. It was literally just us and that girl, I
mean,
think, and
there
that's
was
why like we
multiple
like
people on the
They
floor.
were not in their right mind. Right?
No.
yeah they were
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was the scene yeah.
What's the scene?
It was an experience for sure. What a time. I'm glad glad we did it.
I will say if there's one thing I learned was that like it's not bad to just like walk around a city like late at night alone. I think that like almost every night I like ended up walking like 45 minutes alone in like the worst part of the town, and I was like, oh, this is fine. Like nobody's like maybe this is like how I go down, and like I like move to some
Also, to
big
be fair, we are all guys. We're fairly
Right,
tall
right.
guys too, so we're very
Keep-
unlikely to be.
keep that in mind as
assaulted.
well.
There
But,
was
like
like
honestly, it was like very peaceful. I was like, I saw some people, and everybody kept to themselves, and there was nothing that was like a danger at all.
no, everyone kept to themselves. I felt like because I took a taxi from the airport to the place. That was it. I took a taxi there, and the like taxi driver did say there's like streets you just don't want to go down here. But that's like every town and city ever. And I did remember when we were walking around, it was like, right, I'm not going down that one. Like,
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
some really rough like looking areas, and it's like, yeah, but
Well, even like Aurora, like we both, like I think me and Harlan both separately, like took the bus, like late, like one of the probably latest buses back to Aurora. Had to walk like 15 minutes in the dark to some
Oh,
like
yeah.
really sketchy hotel area, and it was fine. Like I didn't
Oh wait, do you mean Specky's hotel?
Oh, that was.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
oh
'cause
no,
I
are we
stayed
are we
there
going to
late
talk
at
about
night once
that?
too.
Yeah.
You know, because one of the nights when it was like pissing it down with rain, I ended up going back with Specky because I didn't realize the light rail had stopped like an hour earlier than it
Ah,
normally
yeah,
did.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or something. Yeah. So, because I was like, Saturday night, right? Surely the light rail goes till 1 a.m. It did not go till 1 a.m. So I spent the night at Specky's the best motel.
That's it. The best. It was gated. There was like gun signs all over it. It was so
Yeah, I
scary.
mean, to
There
be
was
fair,
a
it was
gun store nearby. Like
It was probably the
it
safest
crazy.
place. Yeah.
it was actually like really
The safest
nice. So like
place
that's
to be.
why I think they had like all the security measures and the fence up.
It
It
Because
was
like we
pretty
gotta
nice.
we gotta protect this like oasis.
I did think
The best motel was the best motel.
When I
honestly.
took
It
the
was
bus
best motel
there-
I've ever been in.
at like
It's better
1
than
in
the
the
Airbnb,
morning.
that's for sure.
Oh, it was a lot better. We should have stayed there when we were given
You
the
should have
chance.
stayed in the best motel. You guys
The
originally were
beds,
going to
the
be
beds
in the
were
best motel.
nice, man. Yeah, the covers
But
were
getting
like,
there in
super
the dark
comfortable.
was quite. I remember I had to take the bus there, and this guy sat next to me, and I was like, he's probably confused why this like quaint British guy is even here. And I was like, "Excuse me, could I please get off?" And he just wouldn't move. And then he like
It's like,
stood
oh,
out of the
this
way.
This guy is so drunk. He's speaking with a
Yeah,
British
he's
dialect.
British. And then
Yeah.
and then they stop you and they drop you off in these like, because America doesn't do roundabouts, and it's quite a big spread out place, and it was just pitch black. It felt like that bit in SpongeBob when he's waiting for the bus, and it's
Dude,
like,
it did feel like that. It was like
Yeah.
there was not many lights, and you're just
Yes.
walking down the street without a sidewalk.
And I was just hoping and I was praying that no one else got off the bus at the same time as me, because like, if you mug me, like, if you do whatever, like, I'm not going to do anything about it.
Take my Lorcana cards, please.
Yeah. I
don't
remember
need
you
them.
texted me because when we were locked out and the next day was the actual full DLC event, you just said, "Please tell me you've got your blue steel list with you and it's not locked in the Airbnb."
Wait,
Yeah.
could you imagine trying to get a golden Mickey to Aurora Avenue safely?
Oh my god. Yeah.
That would have been the absolute challenge of the weekend. Like forget winning it, like just feeling safe walking
Protecting
back
that.
with it.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
for
yeah, it
context,
was
by the
called-
way, guys. So, but before the event, we all got in a Discord call to prep and talk about the event, and this is also where Moyen made like the 80%, 20% comment, right, for like practice tourist. And then we're looking at the location of the Airbnb just to see how close we were to where I was staying, because I was staying with some family friends, also in like the northeastern suburbs kind of area. And then they search up where the best motel is. They search up Aurora Avenue, and then Sky goes, "Oh no, that is like the most infamous road in
Had a
Seattle
Reddit
for all of
page.
the crime."
Yeah.
Reddit
Yeah, I had
Yeah,
a
right.
friend that goes to school in Seattle, and she was like don't stay at Aurora. Like there's one thing you don't do here. It's like Aurora's like the worst place. And I was like, oh man. So I look it up, and there was a full like Reddit page about like the horror stories of like just stuff I won't say on this podcast. But like
Yeah.
it was some pretty nasty stuff.
But if you want to
Like honestly, like I didn't
Aurora
I didn't
Avenue
see it
subreddit.
too much. Like it wasn't bad. Like I don't know if you had to go further north or what.
I
the
think
deal
if you
was,
keep
but-
going down that road, it got worse. Like,
Yeah. like
that wasn't that bad where we stayed, to be
Bus
honest.
stop
We-
15 was where it started to get sketchy.
It was
Yeah,
next
'cause
to a
the family
Dunkin's.
friend I was staying with said that area of Aurora Avenue had gotten a lot better in recent years, and was like,
Oh, okay,
I mean,
okay.
we woke up
It's on
and
the
got
up
like
up then.
we
Very
got
good-
like a
good for them.
Dunkin' donut, and then there was a Jack in the Box, I think it was called. It was like, it was two fast food restaurants. It was alright, it wasn't the worst.
It was,
I think
it
the
was a
turning
Krispy
point for you
Kreme.
guys in getting
Boy, I
better
love
That
at
was
Krispy
it.
was when
Kreme.
was when I googled Aurora Avenue, and the first news article that came up was like September 2024. What are we gonna do about Aurora Avenue? As for like, it was like a main council like
Just, like,
meeting point.
The whole city is coming together to like try to fix this area. And it's like, oh, great. We just put a non-refundable deposit on this hotel room.
Yeah, and if that's
Right
an
on.
article from 2021, right, you're going to be like, all right, they might have fixed it by now, but it was like last month, so it's obviously still an ongoing issue.
Oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's bad.
Good times.
Right, shall we get back to talking about Lorcana on this Lorcana
Yes,
podcast?
yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how long we've been talking for. Are we?
We're at like 54 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so we've talked about NA champs. I mean, we could look at the other decks you brought up here if you want, just a quick run through. If we look at the other finalist deck, we have the Ruby Sapphire deck by Scott Markson. Markson. Either or. Do you guys know?
I do not know this name, sadly, no.
Oh. What I love, though, immediately I want to note is that he's running the two Pirates Life I was running with the Maui Sharks, which I think is a beautiful pick, especially if you're expecting like the sort of Mines aggro-y meta. It sort of helps you like stay alive for a bit longer to recover the board. And I do love the 4 Sisu option, but and still running 2 Be Prepared. Yeah, I mean, I think the Hideaway definitely makes a lot of sense when you're going against Mines, when you can recycle it with the Sharks. Just yeah, this is a really solid red-blue list, and then you even got the the one Queen of Hearts in there for a bit more of the anti-aggro. I think the only 3 Grand Martel is interesting though.
Yeah, only 3. I'll admit as well, with these Ruby Sapphire lists, you can have these one-off actions because Maui Shark gives you viability. And I think some of the lists that we've got now, the ratios have changed. I've seen like 3 Pirates Life, only 3 Maui Shark, and 4 Tala. You'd probably stick with 4 Tala. But even with Sailor's list, who did manage to go and get his World's Invite, like he had a one-off Medusa. And what I really liked about that was like in a Swiss rounds, it's like you have to respect that. Even actually, not even just you have to respect that there's a one-off Medusa in the deck, because there was a lot of Tragic Beasts being played, or like the talk of Tragic Beasts being good. I don't actually think it got played, but like, you can play a Tragic Beast. Are you going to respect the one-off Medusa, though? Remember how much they can scry in that deck? I just like that sort of stuff in the game.
Yeah, I had a one-off Medusa, and it was very, very good, especially for the Amethyst meta that we had for the LCQ. Very solid choice. Also, they cut the Let It Go, which I think is a grand idea, especially if you're just running the 4 dragons. We're not seeing much of because the Let It Go is primarily there for some of the targets. You're not necessarily like the red-blue mirror, but also for the specifically the Cinderella shift line, right? But because all the Amber Steel lists were going a lot faster, no one was running the mid-rangey stuff, so I think it makes sense to cut the Let It Go out.
Yeah, I think one-ofs are interesting. Like the one-of Queen is fine. I'm sure that's just for aggro stuff to catch up. And honestly, I'd probably rather play Medusa myself if I could find the uninkable spot. But it might have just been one of those things where you didn't want to play any more uninkables.
Yeah.
But one-ofs is nice in this game because if you do make it the top cut and it's open deck list, there's always that element of okay, this is in my deck. I think Pete was the one card that I was maybe considering pulling the one-off card. I guess I played an Arthur, but Pete was another one. I was okay, if it's open deck list, people kind of have to respect Pete, and they have to maybe make a suboptimal play when you probably don't have it, but it's just really punishing if you do have it, so they still make the play anyways.
Yeah, I think that Queen of Hearts is really awesome for that because you might have that thing where I might question my one drop, like my Chernobog, my Cinderella, or my Robin Hood, and it's that will be the one time that they Queen of Hearts you on 2 and take it out, or something like that. And it's just that I kind of have to respect it. It might only be a one-off, but I have to think about it. They probably want to ramp on 2, but it's always interesting with one-off cards like that. And I think Medusa's a lot. If you've got the uninkable space, of course, is a lot better because on 2, most Ruby Sapphire wants to ramp. They don't want to play a 2/2 body.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, it also stops Flynn occasionally too. It's just a one-of, but I think there are lines where you can go Queen of Hearts into Brawl into ramp on the next turn and then do some stuff, but...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess just to speed through these a little bit, and then we'll talk about what we think the upcoming set champs meta will be post NA champs. Is Zan's list with Steel Emerald. The classic Diablo line, but this time, the spices, but we've got some free Merfolk in here for a bit more aggression, gives you a bit more of an edge into the unfavored red-blue matchup. I think the most interesting addition is, so this is a card I saw Zan was testing and playing with at EU Champs. I didn't quite understand or quite know if it was consistent enough. But honestly, since it's a cantrip, singing to give resist +2, I think it does make a lot of sense, especially when if you think Amber Steel is going to be a big issue and you want to protect your Diablo from those fire cannons from singing Cinderella. I think it's a really, really strong card with that meta in mind.
I really like the I'm Still Here. I think it's very versatile. You can do things like, say if you have Calhoun on 2, Ursula on 3, you can sing it, buff the Calhoun, take a trade. The Calhoun won't be removed. And then, of course, as you say, you've got Diablo. You can even just buff up the Ursula to draw 2 if you've got a fairly weak hand. I think it's really interesting. I think this deck is going to be really popular at store champs, but as I said, we'll talk about that when we've gone through all of these. I really like the Merfolk's back. Like, I don't like playing against it, but they're kind of taking advantage of a lot of these it's pretty good into the non-steel matchups. It always has been. So Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire, because you pay 1 ink and you've got a 2 quester, and if you challenge it, they discard a card. So that's just quite big. But I always feel scary to bring that into quite a steel-dominated meta. But yeah, I really like to see it back. That's one of my favourite cards.
But I'm also, with the I'm Still Here, you could like theoretically be protecting your Merfolk at points too, from being pinged. Also, just as an ode to like how strong of a deck builder Zan is, he's always, I mean, I'm sure his team is helping him with his ideas too, his testing partners, but just how well he's able to predict the meta and adapt to different aspects of it is that the 4 of I'm Still Here is an amazing tech card for these steel decks, but also specifically he's balancing still being good into red-blue, which is on the other side of the meta, right? A deck that's quite good into him by adding in these 3 Merfolk and returning to the 4 Prince John 4 Hypnotize, which people had been moving away from because of how fast the meta had gotten. So the fact that he's found a way to sort of balance being good into the slow decks and into the fast decks, I think is really, really admirable here for this list specifically.
Yeah, I'm Still Here is an insane card, I think, and I think it was like pretty genius to put 4 of in the deck. This was a card that like I was scared to see. I had heard whispers. I know I playtest with Luke Wonderland a lot, and he's a big green steel guy, and he was trying out a list with 4 of these in there, and I was like, this is good. It's like you shift Diablo, you sing this, and versus all your steel matchups, you're safe. Also, stuff like against red purple that plays Elsa to deal with Diablo, you just sing that, and it also does nothing. I mean, you can still have other stuff on the board, but unless you have like a Maui to hit it, it's not going to kill it. Yeah, pretty much everything except red blue this card covers, and it's inkable. So like, other matchups that was like versus steel, you want to wait to shift Diablo for you to like, I don't know, sing a strength or a storm that can kill enough stuff so that like they didn't have an optimal play to just sing a song to kill your Diablo if it was like steel song or green steel. But this is like just it's almost better because you don't have to deal with your opponent's board in these matchups. You just want to make sure that your Diablo is still up next turn to draw you another card. So that this card was like, I think is super good in this style of deck if you're gonna play it.
And no, that is massive, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you're not too familiar with Lorcana deck building, or you're still new to kind of the intricacies of the inking system, is that often we avoid running tech cards that have an uninkability, and they can be really clunky if you are forced to run a tech card that's uninkable, because they're just going to sit in your hand, and especially in matchups where you don't need them. But when you have a tech card like this that can be quite niche, but it's inkable, means that it's not hindering your deck in those other matchups, so you can just take advantage of the positive aspects of it.
Yeah, and also any card that says draw another card tends to be fairly just viable in any deck, because it's just cycle at the worst cases. And you've got another one-off in there as well. You've got Go-Go, and I think you can get a little bit deeper with this, and it's just reminded me of someone who's playing Steel Song, and they said they have a one-off of the big Cinderella in their sort of lowest to the ground build, and it's just that thing of, against certain players, if I'm to go, ink Big Cinderella, your opponent starts playing around Big Cinderella. If you just ink a Go-Go Tamagoa, most people got, right, I have to play around it. You've only got a one-off in the deck. But your opponent, you're already in their head making them overthink. Because they've seen ink Go-Go. Oh, I need to make sure that I don't have damage resting. I'm going to not lie, at store champs, that probably won't be a thing. Like, let's be honest. The level people
probably aren't going to play around.
No, but I guess at bigger events and stuff like that, people really are going to pay attention to what's being inked. And, if you ink a one-off, any of these mentioned, like Queen of Hearts, Go-Go, Big Cinderella, like, your opponent's going to start thinking, they have that in their deck. And you're just basically throwing them, like, a red herring at that point, because you've only got a one-off. And I'm really liking that sort of in-depth level people are getting to with Lorcana's inking system.
Yeah, because like normally, right, in every card game, you have this rule of like not showing your hand because you can sort of lead people's opinion of your deck or your hand or your board by giving them information they shouldn't have. But Lorcana specifically has a sanctioned method of showing people information, and that is inking. So if you avoid inking something, maybe you can hide something about your deck, or you can, as you say, do a red herring. But it also, this could still work at store champs in a sense that if you take the inverse of your thinking and go, well, if I only have a one of Go-Go Tamago and I haven't inked it all game,
Yes,
then
yeah.
if they're never going to play around it until I play that final card, right?
Yeah, and it's a really like this in-depth thing. I mean, some people just maybe at store champs you might have some Swiss rounds, even at big events, are like not even paying attention to what's being inked. But I'm kind of getting that way of you really want to make sure you know as much information as they have. Like, you know, ink one pirate's life, it's likely they only have one more left in the deck. That sort of stuff. And you can just get really in-depth. And that's why I really love the inking system in this game.
Yeah, I think it's really good if you're like getting new to that sort of thinking. Is just do it, like literally say it in your head. Like when I'm counting this sort of thing, I'm not the best at counting everything, but I'll count key threats. Like especially when I was playing against Ruby Amethyst a lot, you count by goats, right? You're like
Yes,
one
yeah.
ink goat, 2 goats inked, 3 goats inked, 4 goats inked means you just don't have to play around it anymore, which changes your game massively.
Yeah.
And you do it with other key cards like Maui's, Medusas, Tremaines, trying to figure out how many of them they're running, etc.
Yeah, if you've seen an inked brawl, it's like, well, then there's a higher chance that this Hiram I play has survived, but there's also that thing of, well, I've inked a brawl and they know I'm going to play a Hiram, it's likely they have another brawl. And you get to that really in-depth level that I really quite like about the game.
Yeah. No, I love the inking system. We could have a whole podcast episode talking about
Yeah,
the
that was a
inking
bit of
system,
a
to be
tangent about the love of the inking system in the game. But
right. But onto the next deck, we have Amber Steel. This is fairly close to the Mines decks everyone's talking about. No, this is the Mines deck everyone's talking about. I didn't see the Mine for a second. You've got the Docks, you've got the Mines. I'm just for reference, guys. Me and Harlan are very tired.
It's just gone 2 in the morning.
We recorded the podcast episode late for a mixture of my train being delayed getting home, and then once I got home, I was locked outside of my apartment because the digital lock stopped working, and I had to try multiple methods of waking up my flatmate to come let me in, which inevitably became just spamming the doorbell 50 times until they woke up. But, you know, so if that's why I'm a little scatterbrained, there you go. But yeah, no, so some curious things are, we've got the John Silver card that you had played in your Blue Steel list at Store Champs, which was pretty impressive. And we've also got, you know, back to the good old Chiempo, which I think if you're expecting quite a low to the ground meta, can be really, really strong because you can set up a board that's hard for them to, you know, that could be easy for them to trade into, but the moment you set up a Chiempo, well, in a mirror match, what are they going to be able to do to take out a 7 health unit, right?
I don't know, Sky, if you talked to Kurt at the event, but this list, or the one with Chi and Po, has sort of been going around a bit more, and people have been taking eyes, and I could see this as a strong pick for a lot of people at Store Champs.
No, I didn't get the chance to talk to Kurt, but I didn't even know he was playing Chenpo, to be honest, or Rapunzel's Tower. But I think it makes complete sense in a deck like this. I think what's going on here is that you're just essentially saying, okay, when I play red-blue, I'm probably just trying to go 1-1, take my game on the play. I play my 1-drops and 2-drops, and I just curve out, and that's the game. Like this Chempo, these John Silvers Rapunzel's Towers have no impact. I'll just ink them. I'll have plenty of 1-drops. But versus everything else, like especially the mirror match or green steel, or pretty much anything maybe other than red purple, like the Chempos and the Rapunzel's Tower are just gonna put in amazing work. Like you're gonna just like dominate the board pretty much. So I think it makes a lot of sense if you're expecting Steel Song, the mirror match, green steel, maybe even purple steel. These type of cards are going to help you a lot.
He did get a stream game, and I believe it was Emerald Amethyst he was against, and it was just like how demanding the deck can be at some points.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's really strong list, and I do like the Chiempo. I do think Chiempo is a good, like, you know, you can do your 1, 2, 3, 4, and then top it off with a Chiempo, and say, and also you can't hit any of them. Like that's just a really
Chenpo
good
is crazy
spot.
with like stuff like Daisy too, because it's like even if you get through the Chenpo with like your whole board,
Yes.
It's not like it's a Lilo with 1 attack. You can just run anything into it.
Mm.
It's gonna be, it has to be something with 4 attack, which is tough.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's it goes to show that a lot of people were saying that uh, maybe you'd have an easier time choosing a deck at NA Champs because everything got like figured out or tested at EU Champs. But the meta is so volatile, and the specific cards you choose within the decks, even if the deck ink combos themselves and what is strong relatively stays the same, there's always room for innovation and adapting to what's going on. Just in a game like this, where you can mess around with the strength and I don't know, toughness, willpower. Again, really late, but those thresholds of attack and health, and trying to see if you can like almost not break the meta, but gain an edge and gaining those like tiny extra value points from playing an unconventional card like Chiempo, like John Silver. I think it's just really really cool, especially Rapunzel's Tower, very unconventional.
The Rapunzel's Tower is really out there, but the John Silver, I mean, I've been running him in my Blue Steel sort of dock list, and I think I'm going to write like a lot about that and maybe do some videos on that, because I just realised how much the card allows you to do certain things, and it's just so good for aggro. And there's the things of it's a captain, so it means Smee doesn't take his damage. That's just an awesome another thing as well that happens. And then
that annoyed me actually when I realised he had
at Sword Champs twice. Alphos goes and Smee takes the damage, and I went, no, John Silver's a captain. He went, what? And then I played Gantu, and he went, Gantu's a captain.
Literally, I just had no idea.
You gotta watch Treasure Planet, man. What the heck?
His title name is Captain Cranky Head as well.
But no, isn't the green John Silver card not a captain?
No, they're all
one from set one.
I think they're all captain.
They're all captains.
Well, what messed me up recently is that I learned that they're all villains as well.
He's like a mentor villain captain, isn't he? He's like
if you ever watched Treasure Planet, he's not really.
I've watched Treasure Planet.
At least he's not a villain the whole time. He's like not a villain, then he's a villain, and he's not a villain again.
He's like an anti-hero.
Right, and I was like, man, because I like all the Disney there's like the famous Disney villains, like you have like Hades, Cruella, Ursula. He's like never on there, and like it's not a very popular movie, but I thought it was more that he just wasn't a villain. He was like
maybe that's
just a movie that really didn't have a villain. But I guess
that's
I don't know.
Maybe just like a game design thing of like, maybe he's too powerful if he's a hero or something like that.
Yeah,
it could
he needs his own tier.
But
chef.
Chef, yeah, that's the new tagline.
Yeah, but as I'm fangirling over John Silver, like I did a tweet earlier, but I think I could do a video on it. Like how much, I mean, for aggro type decks, meaning he gets to quest one extra turn, it's just actually sometimes quite huge. If you're Smee can quest for longer and you can stop a trade, and then it will always get removed because you're playing aggro. Just your board's going to be volatile for the start of the game. But just how much he's like allowed me to keep doing these aggro game plans, him and Pete together. Just being able to disrupt the board and actually just keep questing out. Stopping a Maui Shark for a turn, that's huge. Then you play Pete the next turn, that's also big. So I just really love that card.
Sure.
Also, Reckless was already quite a strong effect because you prevent someone from questing, which is quite nice for the control decks. But as you say, this is really good for aggro decks, and it's even a bit more targeted than Reckless in the sense that you're not just choosing the character that has the most lore to stop them from questing. You can specifically engineer them into forcing a bad trade.
Yes.
Where if you take away their efficient trade from challenging, you might force them to either choose between taking a 1-for-1 trade this turn, or even if you're lucky, a 2-for-1 trade this turn, versus waiting a turn and getting an efficient trade next turn, but you've bought yourself an extra turn of questing. So I think whenever you can force your opponent into those ambiguous positions where it's hard to know what the best option is, that's when you're really winning, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess to wrap it up, we've looked at these decks. What do you guys think the meta is going to look like going into set champs? What kind of deck should people play? Should they even play a single deck, or should they just play what they're familiar with? Because every deck has a place.
I think the meta is going to be not that impacted by this stuff for set champs. I don't think enough is at stake. It's not like the first set champs where it was Stitch that people are going to take a bunch of time to practice the new meta, just test against Ed's deck, test the new version of Mind's deck with Chiempo and Rapunzel's Tower. I think people are just going to mostly play what they're comfortable with and what they like to play. I'd say they're more going to try to meta call what their local meta is. I think that's a much better strategy if you're actually going to like test against stuff. Like what most of the players will or have been playing for the past 2 sets, so like you can kind of take a gander, at the people that are going to be going to this and say, okay, well I expect this, and tailor your deck around that. I think people will like take just Ed's list and try it out and say, hey, I like this is the red purple I like, and that's fine. But they also have to understand that that list was super tailored for what was expected at this small top 128 tournament. Like just like Chenpo and Rapunzel's Tower, these are like we were playing stuff like For Tremaine that might not be on paper the most utility across the board and have like the most application, but in the right matchup they're going to be the optimal cards to play. So I think it'll be mostly the same. I don't think it's also just, like I said, much lower stakes, so I don't think people are going to sweat too much, trying to get the Scar mat. Like if you get it, you get it. Like it's cool, but...
Harlan, did you also raise your Scar mat at the same time you said that? Or just
No, I didn't. No, I have it next. I have raised it once on the... I'm going to raise it again, the Scar mat and the...
again? I've got the runner-up because Harlan beat me and made me cry.
I mean, that was down to the game before, because we got each other and we just drew into the final, because it basically meant if we played lost whatever, we were in the top 4, which meant that the actual important game was a game between Kawa and Lorcana Villain, because whoever won that one would put me or Alphos top or first or second, and I was watching that game quite intently, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was quite invested in that. But going out to... Sorry?
Who went first in that match? I was just curious. You guys are both playing Blue Steel.
Yeah, this is what we're getting to. Basically, because we had the exact same opponent match win percent, I went 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. Harlan went like 2-0, 2-0, 2-1. But we have the same opponent match win percent, and we tied into the last round, like intentional draw. So, because I had beaten Lorcana Villain and Harlan had beaten Kawa, and they were the 3rd and 4th seeded players after us, it basically was whoever won would then push up the strength of schedule of whoever had beaten them. So because Harlan had beaten Kawa, he was rooting for Kawa. I had beaten Villain, I was rooting for Villain, and Villain unfortunately lost, which meant I got 2nd seed and went 2nd going into the final.
Yeah, and it was
I figured who
red purple.
I figured who won was just whoever went first twice.
I think when we were chatting, it was... Yeah, I think it was who was going to go first, because the skill level got... I don't know. And that it's an aggro deck. Like, I just want to be first. So, I just wanted to get top seed, to be honest with you. But we did think... The game on the draw felt I was still fairly had a chance.
Yeah, maybe... I think Harlan had a better chance on the draw than I had on the draw.
Yeah, because on the play...
Were you playing Strength, Harlan? Your list?
Playing what, sorry?
Strength of Raging Fire?
Yeah, I got Strength of the Raging Fire. I had 3 copies in there.
Yeah, you're probably favored a little bit then.
Yeah.
I think 55-45. It's still tight.
It felt like if I got the perfect line on the play, because of the Alice's being 1/4s of ward, it was like... And then I think 2 games I quested and then warded up a Gantu. And it's like, well, that law's just... that law's just locked in because you're not got red cards.
Captain Cranky Pants
awful.
coming through.
I've never had a Gantu take me out in Lorcana before.
And Speci was very excited for a Gantu to win it, and the last move of the game was Alice Quest Ward Gantu.
Did you see Specky clickbait that Gantu on his video?
Yeah, he did. He does really like Gantu, which I think Gantu, a card like that, really works well with the Alice, but that's a different thing. That's me just going into that deck. I mean, you can play him in purple still, but resetting him, that's not... No, because snake bouncing him is not the thing. It's the fact that he has 3 health is the thing that's negative.
3 health is not a lot. I actually have a funny story about my second to last round at Continentals was versus the Mines deck, and the first game I didn't see it at all, but the second game last turn he plays down a Gantu to put on lethal, and it was pretty much I needed to find an answer for this Gantu or I lose. I have no cards in hand. I top deck Popsicle and the Popsicle and the Popsicle into or I had 2 cards, but I had to play 3 Popsicles and dig a Chicha trigger. Essentially went down to my last ink that I had up to find the answer. And I finally last card was a Tinkerbell, and I had a cannons in hand, so I cannoned it, killed the Gantu, and he was so sad. But I actually the
imagine
2
so.
turns in a row I did that. I just like filtered, play like 8 cards to like dig for answer. That
Yeah.
was pretty funny.
Thing
That
is,
was the only round I 2-0'd as well.
he puts such a big amount of pressure on the board.
Only round you 2-0. Gentoo sucks.
Hey, he didn't have Alice.
In the mines,
He didn't have Alice to ward it.
Didn't have Alice.
If he had Alice, you'd have to hunt for the grab your swords as well.
That's true.
But yeah, no. What was I going to say? Sorry. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought there. Cut that out.
It is like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Just Gantoo things.
Yeah,
just Gantoo things. But yeah, it felt like if I got the right plays on the play, Alphos couldn't really find a way in sometimes. And of course, he'd want to be setting up the quill and then maybe a bit of Hiram draw if you needed it. And maybe some scrying.
I don't think I did Hiram draw.
No, you always inked and went for other stuff. But I guess if you need to scry for like a Tinkerbell or something, or like take the time off to do that, I'm just going to turn sideways and put Cogsworth down. And then
from the few games I played, Justin, in the Discord, I kind of I don't know if he's running strength at that time, but I could definitely see I was not removing any of his characters. He was just going like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop into Cogs. And I think if you have a strength and you remove like my first Tinkerbell or something, if I go second with a strength, just one shot it.
Oh yeah.
You're probably winning that game.
I mean, I've got
nothing they can do.
Even more practice in the list, and I'm getting to the point where setting up that 3 cost to sync strength is just big, because you just take out the first threat, and that means your whole board gets a little bit more of a lifespan because it can just keep questing. But
you're not on the Mickey.
And it's not like a second.
I'm not on the Mickey now.
It's not like a second tick saves it because it's all X and freeze, right? So like the second, you need the tink to have the ink dry so that you can actually challenge in and deal 2 damage, right?
Which you can use John Silver for. Yeah.
Or to sing
John
the grab
Silver
your
the
sword.
tink.
Like you
John
just
Silver
need the
Simba.
tink to stick. If a tink gets strength, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, even if it doesn't, honestly, if you hit Cogs on 5 and you completely curve out with everything you want,
you would
you're probably in a good spot.
You would aim for Cogs because having 5 characters and then singing strength is a little bit less uncommon. Like you need a bunch of 1 drops, so you would go for just get Cogsworth set up, and then everything you play on the top just gets the value of the Cogsworth. And if you had Alice and Cogsworth, like Tinkerbell doesn't even one hit it. You need to put more stuff into it. So that's just the awesome spot. But to circle back, because it'd be nice to get to bed at some point, and I will talk about store champs predictions. I think people won't be investing too much in new cards for store champs. I think people will just play what they know, and I remember with the Stitch ones, people travel quite a lot and I would do ones like all around the country because I really enjoyed it. But these ones, everyone sort of just stays to their local area, and you kind of know what your local area's meta is like. So people know I'm like the Sapphire Steel person, or I play Sapphire Steel, and there is a few Ruby Amethyst players where it's I know that's what you play, and I think they'll just bring that and take their chances. I don't see people competing as hard as they used to for these, which is fine. I do think people would sleeve up Ed's list, and I think that comes down to it just won NA Continentals. Not a lot of people know how to analyze an event and say that was a really good meta call for that event. And also the deck cost $180. Who didn't have those cards laying around? So
I don't.
You don't? Okay. Well, it's some set 1 stuff, but then the rest is it's been staple Ruby Amethyst for 6 sets, isn't it? It's four rabbits and all that stuff. So I could see people picking that up. And maybe some of your local Steel Song players might move to Dock Mines, but buying a full Dock Mines build, I don't know. I don't see anyone really doing that.
Rapunzel's what, $44 again? Something crazy.
Yeah, it's for the store champs. I don't see it. Maybe if you're going to a DLC next time and you want to get the practice in, but that's sort of really preparing. But there are a lot of Emerald Amethyst players that I know locally, or that I still know just everywhere, even on Discord, that just still want to play Emerald Amethyst. And if Zan's bringing a very good list to the event, I think I could see that being played everywhere. I can see that Emerald Amethyst list being played.
Mate, do you know when I'm going to get my set 1 cards finally?
When's that?
I'm going to buy the Chinese and Japanese cards to play in the Chinese and Japanese set 1 DLC, whichever country it's in, and then I'm going to bring those cards back to EU and just have mixed language decks.
That was really funny when we got told at Store Champs that you can use Chinese and Japanese cards. and they said just tweet it out and like get the information out there. And it was like it didn't look very believable, your tweet.
No, it didn't, because I literally I was like, I want to be the first to tweet it, so I rushed to tweet it. I said it in all caps, and then I like didn't check my phone for like 5 hours, and I just see like 10 comments being like, "Where's your source? This doesn't sound really believable."
It was
I'm
like
sorry.
my dad
It
works
was
at
straight
Sega.
from Ravensburger.
It was like my
Like
dad
it was
works at
official.
Nintendo, like level, wasn't it?
I never
that
understood
happens a lot,
the language thing with cards. Like I understand they're like cheaper usually if you're than the English cards, but I don't know. I just don't. I feel too bad if people don't know what my card is, like having to like go through that whole process.
That
I
sounds
remember
like a man
Magic.
who's never played with a Monsieur Much instead of a Mr. Smee.
You've never played a Monsieur Mucho.
Okay, if there's
It
like
was
one card like
STS
I know
Smee.
Tamato has like Italian is like bling bling, or like the dime is like
Actually?
numero uno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I want that now.
There's-
No, it's bling bling. It's
Oh
bling.
my
And like yeah,
God.
Cogsworth is Big Ben. I understand if you like have a couple like
Yeah.
they're just funny and like,
Yeah.
but like if your whole deck is that like and you're playing against somebody
Yeah.
new, like or if you're going to a locals with
Oh.
it and somebody that doesn't
Wait, but
grind
Sky-
everything.
What if your deck is all one language, but it's a language you don't speak, like my French Birmingham yellow green deck?
Yeah, that's the worst because then you like can't even like word it exactly as it's written if you're trying
No,
to
that
explain
was-
the card. You have to like pull up an image of it in English. It's just a whole problem. And I remember there was a Magic like store championship or something that some guy like played his whole deck in French. It was like I can't remember. It was like blue white spirits or some just an aggro deck. But it was so annoying having to like go look up every single card they had. And I was like going back and forth between trying to decipher the card, like the few words of French that I remembered from like high school. And I was like, it just gave me a headache and like honestly made me play worse. So like I always say if you can like play with most of your cards in the English language if you're going to a
Yeah, I
tournament.
mean, for me, it's just a matter of money and accessibility. Like, the reason a few of my cards are in different languages is because I just accept cards from other people to help fill out my collection.
Sure,
to
and
buy
that's
cards
fine
for
if it is like
Yeah.
purely like okay
Mine's-
these are like a lot cheaper, or if it's just like for the meme or something, that's fine. But if you're just like doing like you can't read my cards, like I don't know.
I tend to
that
have,
just seems
like,
so cheap
In the
to me.
deck, I have so I have some like French Alices and some German Mickeys, and I do have a funny thing about the French Alice because I played someone at the store champs, and of course not everyone knows 100% what Alice does, and the one I'd played on the table was the French one, and they said, "Oh, could you explain it because that's in French?" I went, "Sure," and I just picked up the card and showed it to them, and they went, "Yeah, it's still French. I can't read it." You know?
Yeah, but it's got no ability other than like. Oh no, it does have abilities. Never mind.
But Alice, it's got the ward.
Yeah,
It's got the
Like a
whole
ward of
thing.
a +1 lord.
Yeah, and the Mickeys that are German, it's not resist one, it's robust one. So people have sort of figured that one out on their own.
It's
But
close
I know what you
enough,
mean.
yeah.
If you're doing it just
I
to
don't
be
know,
silly,
We're teaching people other languages. When one funny card at a time.
yeah, I think if you're doing it generally just to be a nuisance, that's not really correct. But if everyone's like Big Ben or like you say bling bling with Tamatoa, like who doesn't want a bling
Yeah.
bling? And then you can just live with that. Like
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the
that's-
main thing is like some people will like sit across. I think there's actually like there's definitely actual rules in Magic about how you have to do this. But like I know one of the rules at some point was you had to provide like a picture or a reference of the actual English card so your opponent could see it. Because like Lorcana, there's a no phone policy at
Yeah,
tournaments.
you're not allowed
so
to
like
phone, so it doesn't work.
yeah.
so like now we're in a weird spot where it's like okay they're probably just gonna want to look it up on the phone, and the judges are probably
You
gonna
have to
allow
call a
that.
judge.
But it's you gotta probably call a judge, say okay I need to look this up on my phone, or the judge has to provide it for you. So, like there's a lot. Like I could just see if multiple people in a store championship have like decks full of just like Japanese or Chinese cards, like there's gonna be just like judge call after judge call, and like the judges are probably just gonna be
Yeah.
scrambling around.
I can see
you
with
make a
Magic.
very
it's-
good point. My counterpoint is my Japanese cards look cool. I just want Japanese cards.
Chinese also, that's the counterpoint. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can really understand it in Magic. Like, there is so many cards, isn't there, and so many different formats. And like, if someone brings like a rogue deck and it's all in like Japanese, and no one's like, I haven't seen these cards and I don't actually know what they do. But I guess Lorcana's card pool is still fairly small. I feel like if you're just playing competitively, you just tend to know what every card does.
Sure, yeah.
And
It's
there's pretty
lot
simple
simpler
cards
for
still.
sure.
Yeah, and there's simpler cards, but then that's a rule we have now. But like you say, I am 100% certain on this. Like, give Lorcana a year or two, and we will be at a certain level where it's a lot more complex. Like, do you remember Diablo? The jump from not having Diablo to Diablo, it's like discard,
yeah.
shift. Like, turns used to be
I
so
still
simple.
miss triggers.
Yeah.
Just wait till we get instant speed, and the bag just gets insane.
You had things like so before Diablo you didn't have it, but now it's like, do you remember just shift move Diablo to a cove sometimes looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh turn. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much going on there. It's like discard card,
then
move
you
card.
sing a storm or something. You've discarded a song, sung a storm. You shifted something, played a cove, moved it. And it's
that
all
turn looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh turn, which compared to before that turn in set 3, when it was like they play Ursula, you play a Pinocchio and hit it with a Rafiki, and that was like the most complicated it got. So I am 100% sure that give it a year, we're going to get mechanics that make this game more... Like, Sing Together is quite big as well, and Pirates Life's actually getting play rather than just Under the Sea. And just every set, we're going to get more complicated cards. And yeah, if you've got a full half Japanese, French, and German deck, and you don't even know what half the cards in it does, like, that's just not good for your game.
Yeah, what changes do you guys think we're going to see like that in the future? Like, I mean, obviously, I don't think most people expect like instant speed like Magic. Like, people just joke about that. But what do we think is going to be actually like game changing coming this year?
I think we might have like a more neutered version of instant speed, where it's not you get to play it when you want, but you get to react to a certain event, right? So
okay, sure, yeah.
If you're like, when a song is played, you can play this. Or when one of your characters is banished, you can play this, right? Something that's like react to an event that's happening. So that way, it's not got like the Yu-Gi-Oh problem of like, do you want to play an instant? No, let's continue. Do you want to play an instant? No, let's continue. Do you want to play an instant? Because that interrupts the pace of the gameplay. But if it's like you're specifically waiting for one point of a turn where you can play it, you can just be like, I need banish one of my cards, play this, right? Like, that would be more okay.
I would really...
A hand trap.
I did it on the Law League podcast, and they asked this, and I think I'd really enjoy sort of the... You know, like in Hearthstone, you had secret cards, and in Yu-Gi-Oh, you have trap cards.
Yes.
I really want that stuff, because it still means that we're not playing cards on our opponent's turn, but we do have interaction on their turn, so we can be like... You put it down... I remember with like Hearthstone, it was... Right, I know what 4 of the secrets are that they have in like the mage deck, and then you would try and like taunt it, wouldn't you? You'd be like, well, I played a character, and
check for it.
Yeah, and it didn't activate the one that like does full damage when you play a character, so you could write that one off, and you could kind of get to a point where you figured out what it was, and you just played around it. I like that stuff, and also I come from Pokemon where you do your turn, then your opponent does their turn. You do your turn, but I know Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, it was like interrupts, isn't it, and all of that stuff. I don't like that. As you said, if you try playing Master Duels right now, it's like
awful.
Your opponent like breathes, and it goes, "Do you want to interrupt that?" It's like this is not a fun gaming experience. I imagine in paper it's better, but I was still like, this is horrible. Like.
But also, when you're trying to get like high-level Master Duel, they have like the auto toggle for checking if you want to interrupt. So actually, people to hide info on whether or not they have a hand trap, they'll turn off and turn on the prompts. So you just having to keep an eye on that.
Yeah,
like,
it's not.
If I'm playing a card game online, I want to like sit back, watch a movie on the other monitor. It's not my turn. Like, I do not want to be like monitoring their heart rate, knowing whether or not it's time to play an interrupt. But I think you bring up a really good point with the Hearthstone secrets, in the sense that if you want to be super competitive, you can be, and you can like bait out the condition and narrow it down and process of elimination, find out exactly what hand trap they could have in their hand. But if you're just a new player, you can just ignore it completely. I mean, it only becomes a problem when it happens, right? You don't actually have to play into it or play around it if you don't want to, if you just want to enjoy the game on like a more simplified level, which I think would really fit Lorcana's ethos of being easy to pick up but lots of depth to master.
Yeah, I think they should go down the route of you do your turn, they do their turn, and that's how it is. You have got cards like Pete, but that Pete sort of just leads into that, like...
Yeah, because it's like a buff you've left.
Yeah, it's like, but that's still your turn, you've done that, they've still got their turn, it's just there's a thing that going on that means you can't use actions. But yeah, is there any you wanted to be introduced to the game, Sky?
I don't know. I come from Hearthstone as well, so I think of a lot of stuff like that. So when you say secrets, I think of Secret Paladin and how broken that
Yeah.
deck. I don't know if you played during then, but it was
No,
like
that got me
one of the most
legend
miserable
ranked.
experience. You played it, okay? So yeah,
Yeah, I loved Secret Paladin.
one of those guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think secrets would be interesting. I think instant speed would add like a depth to the game that could be really good and add a lot of competitiveness to it. But I think overall, I'm like you guys. I like to just look at my hand and say plan out my turn, and feel safe in knowing that like unless I guess there's Ursula that can rip songs and stuff and bare necessities. But like overall, you can just do what you want to do with your hand. Like you don't have to worry about them.
And even
interacting
with
on
the
your turn.
Ursula, you can be like, okay, they have an Ursula, and I have inkable songs, so I'll start inking them, and like you
Sure,
play
yeah,
into
yeah.
it. And both of you guys as well, it sounds like you might have been similar. I like to do things like I will play my turn, I will pass it over, and then I'll go to like the kitchen or something like that. I don't have to sit there and like do
Just
interrupts.
like,
and
okay, you do
things.
your thing, I do my thing, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
I
like
get
if you know it's a very intense deck, like I remember in Pokemon there was Lost Box. It was like I do my 2-second turn, and then you have to watch them do their turn for about 10 minutes, and you just go
Yeah.
read a book or something. But
Yeah, just lots of searching the deck, picking something out. I'm going back in. Okay.
yeah,
Go put something in the Lost Zone. Lugia, go. Or no, that's
yeah, you know.
that's
You had
the
to get-
Archeops. I used to play Pokemon. I follow a little bit.
Yeah, I used to get 10 in the
Um,
Lost Zone, and it took forever. It's kind of like watching a Ruby Sapphire player, like, especially right now with my build, it's like Ink player 1-drop, and they'll scry, ramp, have to make all those decisions. It takes forever.
Yeah, so, right, shall we wrap up?
That's a lovely
we've
idea.
We've hit that mark, and it is now 2:30 in the morning.
I've worked tomorrow. Or today.
Awful.
Time.
Or today, yeah.
Or in 4 hours. I don't know how early you get up, but
Early enough. Yeah.
He's unless his boss is listening to this, he's a software engineer, so obviously he always wakes up well before meetings and within work hours.
Oh,
it's like you wake up, turn on Teams, and like send out one email, and then go back to sleep for another hour.
Wake up about 7:30, I reckon. So, yeah, we probably can wrap
Yeah,
up so I
if
can
the-
get
if
to
the
my
boss
4
is
hours.
listening,
Need to
half
get to
7.
sleep.
So I can get my I'm gonna get my 4 hours sleep.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's been lovely, especially, I mean, specifically, Sky, to have you as the first guest on our podcast, I think is just fitting.
Am I the first?
Really
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
the first
What,
guest.
what
He's very
episode is
picky.
this? 3,
This is
4,
episode,
5?
It's episode 3, which makes it episode 4, because we did an episode 0.
Yeah. And like,
Okay, nice.
as well, just outside of that, it was really nice to catch up with you again because I know you kind of got busy. Again, like you were talking about everything that's going on, like went after Seattle, and then I didn't
Yeah,
really
for
get to chat to
sure.
you as much. So it was just nice to like catch up, and maybe we're sleep
I
deprived,
appreciate-
but it's been nice.
I definitely appreciate you having me on, and I agree. Seattle was a fun time to reminisce about. There was a lot of stuff that I'd forgotten already, but yeah, it was a good time. Thanks for having me.
As Harlan said, maybe we never started the podcast, and this has all just been a figment of our sleep-deprived brains, and you don't really exist.
Oh, please say we've started the podcast.
What did
I thought you
Yeah,
meant you
is everyone
hadn't started
recording?
recording, and you were just like, oh no, this is all the banter before we get recorded.
What did I
This is the
listen to
banter.
on the
At
way home
3
from the
a.m. we're
airport?
starting.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But yeah.
Any
That's,
shout outs
that's
at all,
been-
by the way?
Yeah, I was going to
Great.
say that's been Alphos and Sweet. Thanks for watching. I've got my YouTube channel. Harlan's got his YouTube channel. We've both got Medify Coaching. Sky, what do you have?
Well, I have a Twitch, but I'm not gonna shout it out because I'm not active on there right now. But I guess I'll shout out my Twitter. It's just Sky131313, or no, it's Sky Lorcana. Sorry. And then I also started my own podcast with Wonderland. You guys know him. He won DLC
Yeah.
Seattle. And also another local player of ours named Caleb. And it's called The Lore Report. Where I think we're on Twitter now, and I think it's just The Lore Report on YouTube if you wanna go have a
Definitely,
watch.
yeah.
I think Wonderland sometimes streams it live as well. So
Oh, that's cool. I mean, are we all getting
Check it
podcast
out.
age? We seem to.
Yeah, I think
Sad
you're
time,
a white male, you turn 20 and you want a podcast.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
It's your mid
I
20s.
I went to the dentist today, and my hygienist was asking me, "What are you doing after this?" I was like, "Oh, I got to go record a podcast." And she's like, "Oh, like that's so cool." I was like, I could feel like that there was like something behind that. That's just like, "Oh, another guy doing a podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
It just feels like so overdone at this point that like I'm just whatever. It's
Oh,
fine.
I don't know if us being aware how overdone it is a better thing, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, we're still doing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps us in
we're
the
still
loop of the
doing it.
game. We
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah.
it. Like, yeah, it is what it is.
I mean, we do it for fun. Like we're not like trying to like do something.
No, I'm not selling
like,
supplements and stuff like that.
I don't think either of expect
No,
this
speak for
podcast to just
yourself,
go through
mate.
the
I've got
moon,
the
but-
Vitamix, sponsorship for next episode.
Oh wow! You can finally pay out
I
a
need
little
to I need to catch up. I need a sponsor.
You guys want some HelloFresh? We can do that.
more. Use
I think
5% code
Manscaped is
Alphos
good
and
for this
Sweet.
demographic, right?
I
Yeah.
think you need like at least like 10,000 views on YouTube at least to start getting those emails coming in.
Oh, mate, I had HelloFresh sponsorships for way less views. Well, they'll sponsor anyone. Same with Raid Shadow Legends.
Dude, I take a HelloFresh sponsorship. Just send me the food.
Just give me the no, they
I
do
don't,
that, they
I
send
don't
you
need
the
like
food.
actual money for production. I just take a lunch, here and there.
We're
Right.
cheap. We have low standards.
We should wrap it up because we could ramble forever.
No, we can actually. This is a beautiful trio of people.
All right, I'm gonna click stop recording. That's fine.
All right.
I think
Good
we
night,
already
guys.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
guys.